My name is Megan Holloway. I'm 34 years old, and I was standing in my doctor's office with a genetic report trembling in my hands when she said the words that would unravel everything I thought I knew about my family, my marriage, and my entire life. Megan, you and Ryan share too much DNA to reproduce safely. You're not just married, you're related. I felt the floor drop out from under me. I looked at my husband sitting next to me, the man I'd loved since I was 17 years old, and I saw the same confusion, the same horror reflecting back in his eyes. Related, that was impossible. Our families had known each other for decades. We grew up in the same town. Our parents were best friends. And that's when I understood. They knew. They always knew. Before I continue, I need you to know this story contains discussions of pregnancy loss, family trauma, and devastating secrets. If you've experienced loss or family betrayal, please take care of yourself while watching. Some names and identifying details have been changed to protect privacy. If this story resonates with you, hit subscribe. This channel is a safe space for women who have walked impossible roads to motherhood. Let me take you back to where it all began. I met Ryan when we were both juniors in high school. Our parents had been close friends for as long as I could remember. Barbecues every summer, holidays together, weekend camping trips where our families would pile into cabins and stay up late playing cards. Ryan was the boy next door, literally. His family lived 4 houses down from mine in a quiet suburb outside of Columbus, Ohio. When we started dating, everyone joked that it was destiny. Finally, my mom said, laughing, we always hoped you two would end up together. His mom nodded, wiping tears from her eyes. It's like our families were meant to be joined. I thought it was sweet. I thought they were just being sentimental. I had no idea what those words really meant. Ryan and I got married at 24. The wedding was everything I'd dreamed of, small, intimate, both our families crying happy tears in the front row. We bought a little house 10 minutes from our parents. We adopted a golden retriever named Biscuit. We started trying for a baby almost immediately. And that's when everything started to fall apart. The first miscarriage happened 8 weeks into my first pregnancy. I was alone when the bleeding started. Ryan was at work. I remember sitting on the bathroom floor, shaking, unable to process what was happening. When I called my mom, she rushed over immediately. "Honey, these things happen," she said, holding me while I sobbed. "It doesn't mean anything's wrong. You'll try again." So we did. The second pregnancy ended at 10 weeks. The third at 7. Each loss felt like a piece of my soul being carved out with a dull knife. Each time, I buried another dream I'd been too afraid to fully imagine. But I kept going. What choice did I have? After the third miscarriage, my OB-GYN referred me to a reproductive specialist. Dr. Patel was kind, thorough, and cautiously optimistic. "Sometimes recurrent loss has a simple explanation," she said. "Hormonal imbalances, uterine abnormalities, clotting disorders. We'll run every test and find answers." I nodded, desperate for something concrete, something fixable. But the tests came back normal, every single one. "Your body should be able to carry a pregnancy," Dr. Patel said, frowning at my file. "I don't understand what's causing this." Neither did I. The fourth pregnancy lasted 12 weeks, the longest yet. I let myself hope. I bought a tiny yellow onesie and hid it in my closet. I started imagining nursery colors. Then I went in for a routine ultrasound, and there was no heartbeat. The silence in that room still haunts me. I had a D and C procedure the next day. When I woke up in recovery, Ryan was holding my hand, his eyes red-rimmed. "I'm so sorry, Meg," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." But sorry wasn't going to give me the baby I wanted. Sorry wasn't going to fix whatever was broken inside me. At this point, Ryan started pulling away. Not intentionally, I think, but the grief was suffocating both of us, and we didn't know how to carry it together. He threw himself into work. I threw myself into research, into forums, into anything that might explain why my body kept rejecting the children we were trying to create. One night, I found him sitting alone in the dark living room, staring at nothing. "Do you still want this?" I asked quietly. He looked at me with eyes I barely recognized. "I want you to stop hurting," he said. "I don't know if I can watch you go through this again." But I wasn't ready to stop. I couldn't. Dr. Patel suggested we try IVF with genetic testing of the embryos. The idea was that we could screen out any chromosomal abnormalities before implantation. "It's expensive," she warned, "and emotionally demanding, but it might give us answers." I would have sold everything I owned for answers at that point. We scraped together the money, drained our savings, took out a loan, accepted help from our parents that I was almost too proud to take. My mom wrote us a check for $10,000 without blinking. "You deserve to be a mother," she said, hugging me tight. "Whatever it takes." I remember thinking how lucky I was to have such supportive parents. I had no idea I was looking at one of the architects of my pain. The first IVF cycle retrieved 12 eggs. Only 4 fertilized normally. After genetic testing, we had 2 viable embryos. We transferred the strongest one. 2 weeks later, the pregnancy test was positive. I was so scared to feel joy, so scared to let myself hope. But I did. I couldn't help it. At 6 weeks, we saw a heartbeat on the ultrasound. I cried. Ryan cried. Dr. Patel smiled and said everything looked perfect. At 8 weeks, the heartbeat was gone. Miscarriage number 5. I don't remember much about the weeks that followed. I know I stopped eating properly, stopped sleeping, stopped answering calls from friends and family. Ryan found me one night sitting in the empty room we'd planned to turn into a nursery, just staring at the blank walls. "We need to stop," he said, his voice cracking. "Meg, this is killing you. It's killing us." I knew he was right. Part of me wanted to agree, to let go, to accept that motherhood wasn't meant for me. But there was another part, a stubborn, desperate part that refused. "One more try," I begged. "The other embryo, it's still there. One more try, and if it doesn't work, I'll stop, I promise." Ryan closed his eyes. I could see the war happening inside him. "Okay," he finally said. "One more, but Megan, this has to be the last one." I nodded, even though I wasn't sure I could keep that promise. We transferred the second embryo 2 months later. The 2-week wait was agony. I couldn't eat. Couldn't think about anything else. When the blood test came back positive, I didn't celebrate. I just held my breath and waited for the other shoe to drop. At 6 weeks, there was a heartbeat. I didn't cry this time. I was too terrified. At 8 weeks, the heartbeat was still there, strong and steady. At 10 weeks, everything seemed fine. At 12 weeks, I went in for my routine scan, finally allowing myself the tiniest sliver of hope. The ultrasound tech's face changed. Her smile faded. "Let me get the doctor," she said quietly. I knew before Dr. Patel said a word. Miscarriage number 6. Something in me broke that day, truly broke. Not just bent or cracked, shattered into pieces so small I couldn't imagine ever putting them back together. That night, I lay in bed and told Ryan I wanted to die. Not that I was going to do anything, but that the thought of living without ever holding my own child, of facing this grief for the rest of my life, felt unsurvivable. Ryan held me and cried. The next morning, he called Dr. Patel's office and demanded answers. "There has to be something you're missing," he said, his voice hard with desperation. 6 miscarriages, 6. Something is wrong and you need to find it. Dr. Patel agreed to run one final round of tests, more comprehensive genetic screening for both of us. Not just the standard panels, but deep sequencing that would analyze our DNA in ways the previous tests hadn't. I didn't expect much. At that point, I was convinced my body was simply defective, that I was born to fail at the one thing I wanted most. 3 weeks later, Dr. Patel called and asked us to come in. Her voice sounded strange, careful. "I need to discuss your results in person," she said. "Both of you should be here." I remember the drive to her office. Ryan kept glancing at me, his jaw tight. "Whatever it is, we'll handle it," he said. I just nodded, too numb to respond. But nothing could have prepared me for what came next. Dr. Patel sat across from us, a folder open on her desk. Her expression was troubled, not angry, not sad, but deeply uncomfortable. "I want to start by saying this is a highly unusual situation," she began. "What I'm about to tell you is going to be difficult to hear." I reached for Ryan's hand. "Your genetic screening revealed something unexpected," Dr. Patel continued. "The two of you share an unusually high percentage of DNA, too high for unrelated individuals." I blinked. "What do you mean?" She took a breath. "You and Ryan share approximately 25% of your DNA. That's consistent with being half-siblings." The room went silent. I heard the words, but my brain refused to process them. Half-siblings. That would mean we shared a parent. That would mean one of our parents had. "No," Ryan said, his voice barely a whisper. "That's not possible." "I've triple-checked the results," Dr. Patel said gently. "I'm so sorry, but this level of genetic similarity is why you've experienced recurrent miscarriage. When two people share this much DNA, the embryos often carry incompatible chromosomal combinations. Your losses weren't your fault. Your bodies were doing exactly what they were designed to do." I felt like I was underwater. Everything sounded muffled, far away. "You're saying we're related," I managed. "Actually related by blood." "Yes, one of your parents is biologically related to one of Ryan's parents. Based on the percentage, you likely share either a mother or a father." I looked at Ryan. His face had gone white. My mind raced through every memory, every holiday, every moment our families had spent together. My mom and his dad laughing together. My dad and his mom exchanging glances I'd always thought were just friendly familiarity. Which one was it? Who had lied to us? I don't remember leaving Dr. Patel's office. I don't remember the drive home. What I remember is sitting in our living room, staring at Ryan, and feeling like I was looking at a stranger. Not because I loved him any less, but because everything I thought I knew about our lives had just been revealed as a lie. "We need to talk to our parents," he said, his voice hollow. I nodded. But I was terrified, because once we knew the truth, nothing would ever be the same. We decided to confront them together, all four parents at once. I called my mother and told her we needed a family meeting, something important. She sounded cheerful, unsuspecting. "Of course, honey, Sunday dinner, Dad's making his famous ribs." The normalcy of it made me want to scream. That Sunday, we walked into my parents' house and found everyone already there. My mom and dad, Ryan's mom and dad, gathered in the living room like every other weekend visit. They were laughing about something when we came in. My dad had a beer in his hand. Ryan's mom was helping set the table. I watched them, looking for something I'd missed, some sign of the truth that had been hiding in plain sight. "There's something we need to discuss," Ryan said, his voice cutting through the chatter. Everyone turned to look at us. I pulled out a copy of the genetic report. "We got the results of our comprehensive genetic testing," I said. "The doctor found something. She found the reason I've had 6 miscarriages." My mother's smile flickered, just for a second. "Oh, honey, what did they find?" she asked. I held her gaze. "They found that Ryan and I share 25% of our DNA. We're half-siblings." The silence that followed was deafening. I watched their faces. My dad looked confused, blindsided. Ryan's dad had the same expression, genuine shock. But my mother and Ryan's mother exchanged a look. Just a glance, barely a second. But I saw it. "Mom," I said, my voice shaking, "is Ryan's father also my biological father?" She didn't answer immediately. Her mouth opened, then closed. Ryan's mother, a woman I'd known my entire life, who'd made me birthday cakes and taught me to ride a bike, started to cry. "We never thought this would happen," she whispered. We never thought you two would end up together." The confession came out in fragments, through tears and stammered explanations. 30 years ago, my mother and Ryan's father had an affair. It was brief, she said, a mistake. They'd ended it almost as soon as it started. But my mother had gotten pregnant, with me. She found out right after the affair ended. My father had no idea. He believed I was his biological daughter. He still did until that moment. My mother and Ryan's father had agreed to keep the secret forever. They convinced themselves it was the right thing to do, that the truth would only destroy families, hurt innocent people. So they buried it, and when Ryan and I started dating as teenagers, they panicked. "We tried to discourage it," my mother said, sobbing. "Do you remember when we tried to get you interested in other boys? When we pushed Ryan toward that exchange program?" I did remember. I thought they were just being protective. I thought they were worried about me dating so young. I never imagined they were trying to prevent me from falling in love with my own half-brother. "But then you two got engaged," Ryan's father said, his voice hollow. "And we told ourselves maybe it would be fine. Maybe nothing would happen. People don't get genetic tests for no reason, right? Maybe you'd have kids and never know." My dad, the man I'd called Dad my whole life, stood up abruptly, his face ashen. "You're telling me," he said, his voice dangerously quiet, "that Megan isn't my daughter." My mother flinched. "You're telling me you've lied to me for 30 years, and you let our daughter marry her own brother." I had never seen my father look at my mother with such disgust, such betrayal. In that moment, I understood that I wasn't the only victim here. My dad had lost his wife and his identity as my father in the same breath. Ryan's mother, who was technically blameless in the affair but had helped keep the secret, tried to explain. "We were trying to protect everyone," she pleaded. "The kids were already married, already trying for a baby. We thought if we told them it would destroy their lives." "So you watched her miscarry 6 times instead," Ryan said, his voice breaking. "You watched her blame herself, hate her own body, nearly lose her mind, and you said nothing." His mother had no answer for that. None of them did. The weeks that followed were the darkest of my life. My marriage to Ryan existed in a strange limbo, legally valid, emotionally devastated. We loved each other, but how do you love someone after learning what we'd learned? We moved into separate bedrooms, not because we'd stopped caring for each other, but because we didn't know how to be together anymore. Every touch, every look, was haunted by biology we couldn't escape. I started therapy twice a week. My therapist specialized in family trauma, and even she said our situation was unlike anything she'd encountered. "Your feelings are valid," she told me. "All of them. The love you feel for Ryan doesn't have to disappear just because the circumstances have changed. But you need space to grieve what you've lost." What had I lost? Everything. My identity as my father's biological daughter. My marriage as I'd understood it. My hope for biological children. And the family I'd trusted completely, who had let me suffer for years to protect their own secret. My father filed for divorce from my mother within a month. I don't blame him. How could anyone stay with someone who deceived them so completely? My mother tried to apologize over and over. She sent letters, left voicemails, showed up at my door crying. But I couldn't let her in. Not yet, maybe not ever. "I was young and scared," she said one day, weeping on my porch. "I made a terrible mistake, but I never stopped loving you. You're still my daughter." "And Ryan's half-sister," I replied. "A fact you conveniently forgot to mention while you were cashing checks to fund our IVF cycles." She had no response. Ryan's relationship with his mother fractured similarly. His father, our biological father, became a ghost in his own life, unable to face the consequences of his choices. One family dinner had turned 4 families into strangers. But in the midst of the devastation, something unexpected happened. Ryan and I started to heal, not as a married couple, that relationship was forever changed, but as something else, something we didn't have a name for. We started family therapy together. We worked with a counselor who specialized in genetic family disruptions. What you're experiencing is more common than you might think, the counselor told us. Genetic surprises are increasingly revealed through testing. How you move forward is entirely up to you. We learned that we had options: divorce, annulment, remaining legally married but living as family rather than spouses. We chose, eventually, to divorce. It was the most painful and most loving decision we'd ever made together. "I don't know how to be your husband anymore," Ryan told me the day we filed the papers. "But I don't want to lose you from my life. You're still my best friend. You're still the person who knows me better than anyone." I took his hand, and for the first time the touch felt different, still connected, but changed. "We'll figure out a new way," I said. "We've survived everything else. We'll survive this too." And we have, slowly. Today, Ryan and I are no longer married, but we're still family, just in a different configuration than we ever imagined. I've started exploring other paths to motherhood. Adoption is a real possibility, one I'm pursuing with the help of an agency that understands my complicated story. My therapist has helped me understand that the losses I experienced, the 6 Bobbies I never got to hold, were not my fault. My body was never broken. I was failed by the people who should have protected me. I'm still working through my relationship with my mother. Some days I think I might be able to forgive her someday. Other days, the anger feels as fresh as the moment she confessed. Healing isn't linear. I've learned that the hard way. My father, the man who raised me, who I still call Dad, has been a source of unexpected strength. He's made clear that biology doesn't determine family. I'm his daughter, regardless of DNA. Nothing will change that. As for Ryan's father, my biological father, I haven't spoken to him since that Sunday. I'm not ready. I might never be. Looking back, I understand now that secrets have a way of surfacing. They don't stay buried forever, no matter how carefully you hide them. And the longer they stay hidden, the more damage they do when they finally break free. If my parents had told the truth 30 years ago, lives would have been disrupted. Marriages might have ended. But Ryan and I would never have fallen in love. We would never have married. I would never have lost 6 children to a biological incompatibility no one warned me about. The truth would have been painful, but it would have been so much less painful than the lie. To anyone watching this who is keeping a secret that could affect someone you love, please consider the cost. Not just to you, but to everyone who will eventually bear the weight of your silence. And to anyone who has experienced loss, betrayal, or family trauma, you are not alone. You are not broken, and your story is not over. One question I keep returning to: if you discovered a devastating family secret, would you want to know the truth, even if it meant losing everything you thought you knew? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. Thank you for listening to my story.